In the last episode of the Workshop Watch you saw how I pushed the wheels onto the axle. One was a bit tight at the time, wasn't it? Just to set the record straight. Wheels on such aircraft must spin freely. All wheels of course have to run free. But there is something to consider here that many may not even have on their radar. These planes have no brakes. No brakes at all. Modern aircraft always have a brake. This means that even if one of the wheels would jam, I apply the other brake. I can counteract the one-sided pull a bit. Of course this is not ideal, but it is done. I have already experienced that. This is not possible with these aircraft. There are no brakes. The wheels should be turning freely. This was the wheel that ran a bit tight last time. As you can see, they actually spin free. I had really just forgotten the grease over there. As far as brakes on these aircraft are concerned, maybe a few small words about it. The airfields at the time were round, which means that the planes were placed into the wind at the time and were then allowed to speed away at full throttle against the wind. If such a wheel somehow does not run as it should, because you have forgotten the grease, or because something is wrong with the bearing, or because there's dirt in it, and they start to eat, then of course it breaks. The plane then wants to go in one direction or in the other. This can sometimes be dangerous, of course. You can countersteer it with a rudder, but especially with such an aircraft, with such a small rudder like here, for which we need a large propeller at the front to have an effect in low speed ranges, it can be fidgety. They should therefore run without resistance on both sides. Today brakes are often installed in historic aircraft, that is, historic aircraft in goose feet, because it complies with modern regulations. However, this does not mean that aircraft without brakes cannot be registered. It only means that an aircraft without brakes is subject to certain operating restrictions that an owner of such an aircraft does not want to accept. Of course, there is traffic with many aircraft at most airfields today. Others are also taxiing around on the ground, and because others also drive around here and everyone doesn't want you to crash into each other, brakes increase safety. In the air, however, they are highly useless, at best unnecessary weight. Therefore, if you build historic aircraft and want to make them historically correct in all functions, then you should also avoid using brakes. That's what I do. There's also something else that many people don't think about either. These aircraft are designed in such a way that the center of gravity is only immediately behind the axle of the wheels. This means that the moment the tail rises and something, for example a brake, prevents the wheels from freewheeling, it can happen that the plane goes then over on its nose. You all know the countless photos of the planes back then on the airfields which stood on their noses. You don't want to. It is best not to install a brake. Of course, you then have to accept the operating restrictions for certification, for example, that the aircraft may only be operated at announced times in a defined airspace and with a trained ground staff. For example, on air shows and the like. Or in your own place, if you have the comfort of a suitable and approved area. Otherwise, there is only the option to install brakes and preferably a steerable tailwheel as well, so that you can also maneuver other opponents on the ground without accidents. So much for the subject on wheels and brakes. I'm just talking about it here because I forgot to grease the last time that wheel, and it just ran like that, if at all.
Wieder ein Aspekt mehr, Wille.